Hi everyone and welcome. We're in my wormery and we're following up on something I started about 12 days ago. 12 days ago I went into this container here. This tub has finished castings in it, and the castings in this tub were harvested, I believe, 17 days ago. So after the first 5 days of that 17 had lapsed, 12 days ago, I took some viewers' recommendations of trying to bait the worms out of the finished compost because the castings did look like a fair number of worms had wound up in it as I was harvesting the material. So I took that suggestion to heart, and 12 days ago I did set up a baiting mechanism, and we let that go for 6 days. And on the sixth day, we pulled that baiting box out, and we checked to see how many worms had come to the food that I had placed in there. On that go around, it was cantaloupe melon. As you can see here, this go around, it's going to be watermelon. Similar theme, but now it's been another 6 days, and I'm going to go ahead and we're going to check in again to see how we're doing again 6 days later, one more time. So. But before I get off the topic, let me just mention that if you are interested in seeing that other video from 6 days ago, I'll go ahead and I'll place a link to that right up here in the corner so you can check it out. And at that point, we did pull a handful of worms together. So we had used a coffee filter such as this to dump out the contents of the box that I was baiting the worms with. And we're going to do the same thing again today. And then once we've emptied the box out, we'll simply reload it with some of this food that I've got here. And we'll use a couple other coffee filters as bedding, and we'll be sure to also include a little bit of grit, since that always helps too. And then we'll put the baiting box back where it came from and let it continue. And obviously that's going to be contingent on us first assessing the material to see how it's progressing. Because if it looks like the material's been fully evacuated and there's no more worms cruising around in it, then maybe it won't be even necessary to reload it, and I'll be able to start really considering this material as finished compost, as castings only. But I have a hunch that there's probably still some worms cruising around here, and I'm in no hurry to use these castings anyway, so I can certainly see potentially letting this go just a little bit longer. So now, previously we had taken a peek down into this hole here to see if we could see any worms, and on this go around I'm not seeing any worms squirming around. It's a little bit surprising, and who knows, maybe it's just because they've all been attracted to the bait. So we're going to do the same thing we did last time. We're going to dump this out onto this cardboard here, onto this coffee filter, to see what we see. But before we do that, I'm going to retrieve this piece of paper here just to check it out. Sometimes there's a fair number of worms hanging out on the paper, dining on the paper itself, but I don't see anything like that. And this paper seems to be in pretty decent shape. So, what we could do is we can place that under the box once it's been reloaded and we were prepared to reset it. But we might do a little bit of poking around here first. So I'm going to remove this temporarily, and we'll grab it again when we need it. Right now, I'd like to focus more on seeing what we see when we dump out the contents of the bait box. And if you haven't watched the previous videos, or you don't feel like reviewing them right now, this bait box is actually the filter enclosure for my pond pump, which no longer works. But it's got these nice openings in it, which allows the worms to come in. And in the past, we've seen pretty decent results of this, making it easy for the worms to access the food inside. So this box has got the cantaloupe rinds in it, as I mentioned earlier, and it does look like they've done a pretty decent job chewing it down to the rinds only. I don't see much of the yellow fleshy material of the cantaloupe melon itself. So let's see how many worms we were able to bait out this time. Oh, once again, it looks like we've got ourselves a pretty good number of worms. There's still quite a few down in here within the box too. So we'll be sure we retrieve these little guys as well. Don't want to leave many behind, or any behind if it's possible. This looks to be almost like the same quantity of worms we saw when we unloaded this box previously. Pretty fair number of them. Yeah, there's still a couple in there, and I'll try to pick them out before we proceed. But I just want to poke through this and, like we did before, assess how the food is being consumed. There's also this other piece of coffee filter that I had placed in there as sort of a bedding material to be amongst the melon chunks. So it seems like we got ourselves a pretty good outcome again of baiting these worms. And I assume that over time the material in the compost bin gets a little bit drier as it's left out here to evaporate, and that in itself might also be a catalyst for the worms wanting to exit the material as it becomes drier and seek out more moist accommodations. And then they could probably sense the frozen melon chunks thawing and the moisture that they're giving off, making it all that more appealing, in addition to the fact that it's a whole bunch of delicious, yummy food for them to eat. So yeah, I like what I'm seeing here. Pretty good. Feel bad for the wormies though. I don't want to be exposing them to this bright overhead light that I've got on for the cameras. So maybe I can just cover them up a wee bit here with this piece of filter that I've got out. But yeah, in some occasions this is just like a paper thin piece. You could see they've really nibbled the melon, the meaty part of the melon off almost entirely, and there's just this thin piece of the rind remaining. So I like what I'm seeing here. Pretty good results. So I'm going to use a tool here, a little stick that I've got, to try to dislodge these last couple worms from the container. My fingers just don't reach all the way in. I'm trying to be gentle and not injure any worms in the process. Okay, so I might have clipped a couple seconds of that out. So fast forward to now, where we've removed all of the wormies from the bait box. It looks like one of them might have actually fallen down into this hole here. Let's get him up here as well. So like we did before, we're going to try to shelter these guys from this bright overhead light, and I'm going to kind of fold this up into a little bit of a worm burrito like I did last time. I'm just going to set that aside onto the other box that I have over here. The other box that I have over here is the newest of my bins, and that's where we're going to be releasing the worms momentarily. But before we do that, and before we reload the box with the fresh food and put it back in here, I first want to make sure that it's even worth bothering to do so. So I'm going to do that by just poking around through the material to see how many worms we see. I believe last time, 6 days ago, we didn't hardly see any. And that seems to be the same thing here now. The material is definitely drying out as I had hoped it would. So it's definitely getting a lot more crumbly than it had been previously. I'm also using this now as an opportunity to kind of mix up the drier material that's on top and send that down into the holes, while I'm also kind of aerating the material to help it with the drying process. I mean, naturally I'm inspecting as I go along just to see what I can see. And you probably saw me, fetching a couple of these worms as I've encountered them and moving them over into the worm burrito so that they can stay with their colony and be released into my active vermi bin that we're going to release the burrito into. So just the fact that we've encountered one or two worms here and there seems to be evidence of the fact that we're not totally depopulated here quite yet. But it seems to me like we're definitely heading in that direction because I don't see many worms. I mean, there were those couple we spotted along the way and we've extracted them, which was cool. Here's another one. Definitely not many. Perhaps the best place to search though, and I'm going to try to move things off to the edge. It's going to be right in the area where the baiting had been occurring previously. So why don't we just do a quick little turnover here to see if we can actually manually fetch a couple of these wormies as we encounter them. Saw a couple more here. But I mean, you know, I think this leads me to believe that there's still worms hanging out here in the material, and that it is a worthwhile effort to continue to try to lure them out of the material. So I will set up another baiting box. But look at the size of this little guy, tiny. So that probably means that there's a pretty good likelihood of there still being worm eggs, worm cocoons, scattered throughout this material that have yet to hatch. So the ongoing baiting is not only for the purposes of luring out mature active worms that are already composting, but baby worms that have yet to hatch. And that's the other reason I like to include the grit in with the food, because if it is actually baby worms making their way into the bait box, then the grit will be a welcome thing for them, since they require grit to eat. And if they're babies, then they probably just have none in their system yet at all, so that'll be a key element for enabling them to easily consume the food that I've laid out for them. So, alright, cool. I like what I'm seeing here. We're going to get this bait box up and running again now. Number one, I'm going to go ahead and lay down this piece of coffee filter that was resting beneath the container. And since the container's bottom has no holes, I'm not preventing any worms from entering the container by placing that paper there. There again, I can't really explain why or what purpose it's there for. It just seems maybe kind of a neater solution. Maybe if worms do end up underneath the container, then they're on the paper and they can't squirm out of view if I, extract the box next time. Try to fetch more worms out, then it'll be sort of containing them and keeping them in a place where they can't really flee as readily and get away from me if I'm trying to fetch them. Oh, getting my hands a little bit dirty here. So hopefully they're going to appreciate this yummy melon I'm laying out for them. I'm going to try to cram it in here pretty snug if I can. And like we did previously, I'm also going to place another piece of paper right in here with it. Let me just grab a fresh filter for that purpose, because just a little bit of carbon to supplement the food I'm giving them is probably a good thing too. I'm definitely running out of space here. My hope is that I can fit all of these pieces that I've carved off into here. So we're a little bit spilling out over the top, but I'm not going to worry about it. It's a little bit more heavily loaded than it had been previously when I was putting cantaloupe in here. And it's only because I had enough to do this way. So let's get all of this material backfilled around the bait box. And I guess the other benefit I find, or I believe is probably good by disrupting the material this way and kind of jostling it up and airing it out, is that it probably provides little air spaces and cavities that the worms in the material can travel through more easily than if it was all tightly compacted, wet, muddy material. This just seems like a type of material that they'd be able to move through more easily if it's been sort of crumbled up a little bit and left in such a way that there's like little air pockets that they can move through. It's really just a matter of I guess this had been able to kind of squeeze down into the box previously, but this time it might not fit back in just as easily as it had done before. But I'm sure within a day or two this stuff will start getting consumed and start settling, so this piece of paper should just follow and go right down into the hole as the food settles. So, all right, cool. I definitely like what I'm seeing here. Good stuff. Just going to push things aside here a little bit and bring my newest bin to center stage. So this bin has only been around since the 14th of October. Today's the 31st of October, Halloween. Happy Halloween, everyone. So now, here's our worm burrito that we're going to launch off. But let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of this piece of cover paper. And I'll actually move the burrito off to the side onto the cover paper temporarily as we open things up here so we can set the worms free. Okay, so the feeding zone, that was the reason there was a coffee filter here in the middle. It's just my indicator to show that that's where the feeding is happening in this bin. So the feeding only occurred, what was it, yesterday, day before yesterday? It was a fairly recent feeding that occurred in this bin. So this this worm burrito not only has worms, you know, in it, but it also has a little bit of leftover food. So that's fine. That means the burrito is probably not going to be evacuated right away. The worms that are coming over with their food are probably just going to stay in there. And who knows, maybe the burrito will actually attract some of the worms that are in this container. All right. This is a great opportunity to see how these rolls are progressing too, because I've always, you know, been under the impression that bread is a real treat for the worms and they really enjoy it. So this is kind of cool to be able to check in on it. Usually I don't check in on my bins regularly. I just kind of leave them to go. And I don't worry about checking in on them until it's feeding time again. So there is one worm on this roll here hanging out. There's a variety of different types of stuff here. Avocado. I don't even know what this is. Some sort of cauliflower. Chunks of cauliflower stem. It's probably what's kicking off that stinky odor. There's a little bit of a stinky odor in here because there is some cabbage family foods in here. Here's that other roll. I wonder how this one's coming along. It might just be too soon. It's only been 2 days. This stuff was these rolls were extremely dry too. So I mean it was like a little brick. So I'm not surprised. It probably takes a little time for just the moisture to make its way into the roll to make it soft enough for the worms to eventually start infiltrating it. So I'm sure that those rolls are going to be doing great within the next few days. So yeah, maybe another week or so when we come in here to feed again, we probably won't see so much left over of the rolls. All right, so let's bring over our little worm burrito. This time I'm going to actually flip it over, and this way any worms that have squirmed to the bottom to flee the light overhead will be in plain view for us to check out before we finish off here. And this is just again just to get a sense of how many worms we managed to pull together with the baiting effort. And again, it seems like it was an effort worth undertaking because there is a good number of worms in here, a fair number of worms that it would have been a shame to leave in the compost. So I'm happy we did this, and I'm appreciative of the recommendation I got from the viewers who suggested that I do this. So thank you, folks. I appreciate that. But let's leave it at that. Let's get this thing covered up again and let all these little guys get back to the matter at hand, which is breaking down my food to make beautiful black vermicompost, black gold. So yeah, hopefully you know you're enjoying these videos. These were actually requested that we check in. Let's keep these baiting efforts going and let's see how things are progressing. So there does seem to be some interest in it. So if there's any interest, then you know please continue to provide comments and feedback. And you know, naturally, as always, If you enjoyed the video, then always remember to give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate that. Every thumbs up is terrific, and even better, if you like this type of content, keep coming back and become a subscriber to the channel. Always glad to see people popping in to see what's happening down here in my wormery. So, all right, everyone, thanks for watching. Have a great day. Bye now. Oh no! I almost forgot the grit. I bet you were probably thinking that, and you were about to put that into the comments. So I came back in here, and I just figured I'd do a quick clip of it. You can see I've already removed my gloves, and I've started cleaning up, but I didn't want to leave that out because it's pretty important. So I went back in here really quick to add the grit because it's so important for worm digestion to have some sort of a hard material to go with the food that they're eating. So just for the record, I figured I'd jump back on really quick and let everyone know that that was taken care of, not to worry. So, all right, everyone, thanks again. Happy Halloween. Have a great day, and hopefully we'll see you back here next time.